What is up, RotoGrinders? Welcome to NBA Crunch Time. I'm your host, TJ Zworich, joined by two of the sharpest minds in the biz. I got 150 lineups to make on DraftKings today. I have not started making them yet, so I need help from the Triple T formation to help me get it going. First up, Tim Buell, Shiver Me Timbo, Faithful Tides. How you doing, Tim?
Doing well, TJ. It feels like I never see you anymore after, all that massive, all the massive NFL season that we had. And just feels like I only see you like once a week now. I was seeing you like 4 or 5 times a week about like earlier this winter. So it's always good to see you. I'm excited to break down the slate. I think there's a lot going on in the slate. So a lot of news yet to come. Hopefully get it during the show, but I don't think we're going to quite get all of it. During the show, we might have to backload some spots tonight.
I miss you too, Tim. I miss you too. Hopefully we'll be getting some more shows together here in the next little bit. We got MLB starting up soon, so I'm sure that is going to get things a little bit busier again. Helping us break down this NBA slate again as well, we got Taylor Smith. Taylor, how you doing today?
Not too shabby. DJ, happy to be here with y'all. A lot of games tonight, a lot of news we're still waiting on, so should be a fun time.
Well, let's start with you. What's your 30,000-foot view of this slate? What's some of the news we're still waiting on?
So a lot of still again. I think they have 9 as of now. There might still be 1 or 2 questionable. So second slate in a row where it's a lot of them, unfortunately, but it's another good game environment against Atlanta. We're still waiting on, let's see, for the FanDuel slate, the last game is Denver-Phoenix. There's a lot of news in that game. Like half of the Suns are questionable, including KD, Bradley Beal, Grayson Allen. Denver has, I think, Jamal Murray and Michael Porter questionable, so a lot can move in that game. There are some late games on FanDuel that make it easier to kind of build for that. But that is the lone 9 Eastern game on DK, so it's kind of complicated. We also got Karl Anthony Towns downgraded to questionable like half an hour ago. That moved things around. Anthony Edwards is questionable. So a lot of moving parts. And then on FanDuel, Utah's tanking again, so there is Utah value over there.
Well, since we got a full hour to break it down, we'll go game by game, and then we will highlight not a full position by position breakdown, but our very top plays position by position as well. We will, of course, take your questions. Like always, I'll go to the RotoGrinders live stream Discord chat first. I'll go to the YouTube chat second. YouTube, smash that like button for us. It's free content on the weekend right before the Super Bowl. All we ask is you smash that like button. Speaking of the Super Bowl, want to crush your family members in the prop pool or get an edge on the sportsbook for the final NFL game of the season? Try Props and Pick'em for a discount. The Props and Pick'em package features daily prop picks and fantasy pick'em selections from many of your favorite RotoGrinders experts. We're knocking $50 off the price of your first month when you sign up with the link below. You can take those props in the link below, as in down in the description right there. You can take those props and pick them plays. You can take them over to Splash Sports. If you haven't signed up for Splash Sports yet, now is still the time. Use promo code ROTO10 when you play $100 in quick picks. You get $50 right back. SplashSports.com/RotoGrinders homepage. Plus, PGA Tour is back in action, which means your favorite golf analysts are turning out content and projections. Familiar faces like Notorious and STL Cards Headliner Loaded PGA DFS product, which includes articles, videos, lineup HQ, SimLabs, and more. Playing multiple DFS sports, check out this sweet deal for a limited time and get your first month of Combo Pro for $79.99. That's only $15 more than PGA Premium, only $5 more than NBA Premium. Talk about a value play. You don't want to go all the way spending for a full Combo Pro. You can check out Combo Light. We want you to have a massive takedown, so we're taking $10 off your first month of Combo Light. That means with access to our SimLabs lineup building tool and content from some of your favorite DFS analysts like us for $19.99. Tim, arguably the most exciting DFS game on the slate is the very first one of the night. Atlanta and Washington. We got a 7-point spread in this one. Washington's at home. They are without a bunch of bodies, and we are still waiting on Julian Champagny or Justin Champagny. Which Champagny is that? Justin Champagny, who is questionable. Talk to me about the Hawks and the Wizards.
Yeah, I mean, this is an unbelievable spot for fantasy goodness, as they say. It's definitely going to be a pretty highly owned game as well. I don't think we're going to see like the massive, like, huge, minutes like we did last night when they only had like 8 guys and only like 7 really played. We're not going to have that, but we're still going to have quite a few minutes and amazing usage for guys like Jordan Poole and Bilal Coulibaly. I think those guys are both fantastic plays. That shouldn't shock really anybody that's been following the news today. Jordan Poole and Coulibaly, I think, are really top plays on this slate. We lost Keyshawn George, and he was projected to start. Now we have Corey Kispert in that spot. I don't really love him that much. I think Carlton Carrington is a decent play because he's point guard, shooting guard. And he's only 4,500. I think he's okay. But we'll see, because we also have Kobe Jones and Jalen Martin projecting for minutes. So they're not in the player pool, but they likely are gonna play a couple of minutes each, I would say. So I mean, they're still gonna have, let's say 10, 11 guys today. So it's not going to be like the 7 or the 8 technical that they had yesterday.
Taylor, how about you? Washington, Atlanta. Start on the Washington side and lead us over to the Hawks.
Yeah, not into Harrington. Like, his price came way up. They have Brogdon back tonight, so not like he's going to get all the minutes. I do think he's pretty safe, just like in terms of blowout, he should be safe. But not a great per minute guy. Still going to be popular. So getting from that, I feel okay about it. I think Poole, Champagny are the ones I really have my eye on. Poole just going to get all the usage without Kuzma, of course, and Valanciunas is gone. Sarr is out. All sorts of stuff for them. So he should be the guy again. Atlanta without DeAndre Hunter. They still have Dyson Daniels they can throw at him, but an okay enough spot. Minutes should be there. I'm pretty into Poole, even though we know the floor is non-existent with him. Rashawn Holmes is interesting as well. If he's going to start, he was quite good last night. Vucevic didn't really factor into things too heavily. So the other Vooch. So I think Holmes is a pretty good play, even on FanDuel where he's center only. Just cheap stuff. Going to start, good per minute guy historically. They could always pull the rug on that, like play Vucevic more tonight, but I'm not really expecting that. So I think he's a good play. Coulibaly I love as well, especially on DK where he's, I think, 5'7". That's just a price on him. Wish he was multi-position eligible, but shooting guard only is okay enough, I think. As far as Atlanta goes, I think Capella's back. So I still like Okongwu because the matchup is so good against Washington. We've been streaming centers against them forever, it feels like. So Okongwu is still playable. The headliners are going to be Young and Daniels, though, I think. They do have their new guys, I believe, available. Levert, George Niang, and Terrence Mann. So not quite as thin as they were yesterday. I'm pretty much just focusing on Trey Daniels and Okongwu, all of whom I think are good. But not any of them are really priorities for me. They're kind of secondary plays, even though the matchup's as good as it gets.
Tim, how about you? Any final thoughts on Atlanta? Are you going to be prioritizing Trae Young and cash today?
I don't think so. I think I'm going to be prioritizing Dyson Daniels in cash, actually. I think you can play Trae Young in cash, like, definitely. I wouldn't fault you if you wanted to do that. I prefer Daniels in cash games. I don't mind getting to Trae Young in tournaments. Obviously is fantastic. Okongwu in GPPs I like a ton. Other than that, I don't really like any of the bench pieces for Atlanta. So it's really just Daniels for me would be like my top points per dollar play for Atlanta.
All right, next up we got the Spurs and the Magic. The Magic are favored at home against the Spurs. Spurs now have De'Aaron Fox. Orlando now fully healthy. Tim, who do you like on between the Magic and the Spurs? Not the most exciting fantasy game on the slate.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really like this game just from an overall perspective. There are certainly bits and pieces that you can play. Like I think Franz Wagner at 8,300 is certainly viable and can be part of a portfolio of teams. I might get to one of him in a 3-max setting, but one would be the absolute most that I would do in a 3-max build. I think Boncaro, you could do the same thing. I wouldn't play them together, but I might play him in 1 out of 3. So those two can certainly be a part of a pool. You can always play Wemby, but I just don't think this is a very good spot. I mean, he's 11-1. Like this isn't. I don't really like him today. I don't really like anyone on the San Antonio side, to be honest with you. I think that at least stuff that I play, the single entry, the 3-max stuff, the Spurs would be a full X out.
I actually X'd out the entire game in my 150 max setting outside of Victor.
I don't hate that either. I think I'm a little higher on Wagner and Boncaro, but I don't hate Xing out this whole game.
Yeah, I basically had a just in case Wemby goes off, I absolutely have to include him in the pool. But other than that, I exit out the whole game. Taylor, how about you? Spurs, Orlando?
Yeah, not into the Spurs. I feel like fully fading Wemby is kind of terrifying, but it's big enough slate to where I think it's doable. Fox, price came up a little bit. He's okay. I have a lot more interest in the Orlando side. I think San Antonio is a good matchup on a back-to-back. Their defense has really cratered over the last couple of weeks as well. So it's not a bad spot for Boncaro or Wagner. I like them both, like Tim said, in different lineups. Both are pretty good plays, though, I think, in the low 8s. And Cole Anthony is an okay kind of mid-range point guard, starting with Jalen Suggs out, but minutes are pretty volatile. He's not a safe play by any means, but I still think he has enough upside to be playable in a multi-entry kind of tournament setting.
Golden State and Chicago, we're back to the exciting games because this one has a lot of fantasy goodness in it. Chicago, one of the best matchups in all of basketball for fantasy purposes. Golden State with a massive 122.75 total tonight. Chicago 116.75, not so bad themselves. Chicago and Golden State, Taylor, where are you starting this off?
Yeah, so a lot more interest in Golden State, of course. They're bringing Jimmy Butler in for this game. It's a revenge game. He has a lot to prove. I feel like narratives are kind of questionable to begin with, but if there's anyone you're going to bank on a narrative with, it's probably him. And I feel like there's a lot lining up for him in this spot. It's like the best matchup you can get this side of Washington. He's not cheap. He's up in the 8K range, but I think there's meat on the bone there if he's like unleashed from a minute standpoint. We don't really know. Like, we know Steve Kerr loves to play 13 guys if he can, but they did just trade for him. I feel like, they're just going to run him out there and hope for the best. So I do feel pretty good about him. I otherwise tagged Curry as a core play. Like, the high end's kind of uncertain with the injury news we're waiting on with like Phoenix and Denver and Minnesota, but I think Curry's a pretty good way to spend, not overly expensive. He's bounced back a little bit recently also. Great matchup. So I like both of them. Draymond's fine as a mid-range play. I never feel great about it. I feel like his floor is awfully low, given in spite of all the things he does when he's out there. But good game environment for him, so I don't mind that. And then I guess the centers are okay individually, Looney and Post, if you want to separate them. But I think I prefer Holmes if I'm going to go down with a center as of now, pending other news.
Tim, how about you? Who are you prioritizing in Golden State and Chicago?
Yeah, so I think I would prefer playing Curry over Trae Young as my point guard in cash games. That's why I'm not playing Trae Young. I just think this is a fantastic spot for Curry. I believe Taylor had him cored as a core play earlier. I'm not sure if he still does or not, but I mean, I do love Curry quite a bit. He's one of my favorite plays on the entire slate. And the other thing is we will have the Minnesota news when the Curry game starts. So this Minnesota news that we'll talk about is very, very important for the slate as a whole. So I think it's worth kind of getting less exposure to that Atlantic game to get this Minnesota news. So that's why I'm playing. I'm going to start off with Curry instead of Trae Young. So Curry's my priority. Unless guys like Conley and Edwards are out, then it's going to move some things around. On the other side of this game, no real priorities. Io has power forward eligibility. He's 5'5". I think he's a pretty decent play. I don't mind Josh Giddey and Kobe White and GPPs. But for the most part, I'm not really like in love with Chicago.
Lonzo's out.
Lonzo Ball's out.
I think Buzelis is okay because he's probably going to start again, but not any kind of priority. But still okay.
With the lack of value on the slate, though, I do still think he becomes pretty interesting. What about, do you think you take any shots now on a Kevin Huerter or a Trey Jones?
I feel like that's too thin. Like, they haven't played for this team yet. There's no telling what kind of role they're going to have. Like, I guess Huerter at 3-2 is okay, but I don't know. Not for me. Probably.
I think Huerter at 3-2, I think, is the one that interests me the most. I think it doesn't really take much if he gets even 15 to 20 minutes for him to get there on a slate where we really have no cheap value. We have a lot of the 5K-ish value, but not a lot of the 3K value.
Yeah. I guess we can see how the projections shape up once we update for Lonzo. I don't know. It's like a 150 thing for sure, but if you're playing, 3 max single entry, then certainly not.
Certainly not. Couldn't agree more on that perspective. I wish we could just backload all of our lineups and not worry about it. And I guess this is the same time as the Portland and Minnesota game where there's a lot of news we're waiting for. But OKC and Memphis, just another one. 3 out of these first 4 games, so appealing from a fantasy perspective. 2-point spread, both of these teams above a 120 total. I think SGA is probably my favorite tournament play on the slate. Projecting for single-digit ownership in this matchup is just crazy to me. Tim, OKC and Memphis, who do you like?
Yeah, I mean, this should be a really, really fantasy-friendly game. I agree with you. SGA is a fantastic play for GPPs at 10-9. This is a spot where he could really beat that price pretty well. So really, really solid pace up spot for the Thunder. I think SGA should. Oh, Anthony Edwards is out, so that's huge.
Not nice that he's out, but nice that we're getting this news now. Mike Conley out.
Mike Conley's out.
Season. We got the 3K value now.
I wish that had come after lock, though. That's the only thing. It would have been so much better. But yeah, we'll talk about it. But it's definitely going to be Robert Dillingham season.
Lock button for Mr. Dillingham. We'll get to that game next. But OKC and Memphis, Taylor, who are your priorities?
Yeah, I agree. The game's really appealing. It's not going to get a lot of ownership, it looks like. I wrote up SGA in the survey as my favorite tournament play, too. So we're all on the same page on that one. With Chet out, I think J-Dub and Hartenstein are perfectly fine, too, in the mid-range. I like that quite a bit. Williams might get a little bit of ownership, but maybe not enough, even on a big slate. The Memphis side, I think we're waiting on Bane. If he's out, then Ja and Jaren Jackson are going to be more appealing. As things stand, I don't have a ton of Memphis, which scares me a little bit, but I feel better about the OKC side of that game, given the Memphis pace and the OKC defense being the best in the league. So Jackson and Ja are fine if Bane is out. Maybe Luke Kennard as a cheapie if he starts in place of Bane, but not getting much Memphis, and it scares me a little bit, but I think that's just kind of the way it goes in this slate.
All right, well, now we get to talk about Portland and Minnesota. Hopefully, though, by the time we're done talking Portland, we'll have that Minnesota projection update here without Anthony Edwards. But in this Portland side, we still have Avdia questionable. We have Henderson questionable. That could make a big difference, especially considering when we want to play a ton of Minnesota players. Getting Simon or Sharp looking better. These guys are all priced up pretty significantly where it might not matter a ton, but it would still be nice to be able to have a potential run back.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes this a winnable game, a more winnable game now for Portland. But still, I mean, the big thing out of this game is going to be Robert Dillingham at 3,500 and Naz Reid. We have an if-then for this, and Naz Reid and Robert Dillingham, especially Dillingham, really pop with no Conley or Edwards. So, yeah, Robert Dillingham, he would be like a 3 out of 3 play for me in a 3 max. Definitely going to be my single entry team. Definitely going to be my cash game team. Same thing with Naz Reid too. So those two I think are going to be extremely popular, but going to be real staples for me. So Nas and Dillingham, I think I end up being top points per dollar plays on the entire slate. And yeah, I don't mind Denny as a run back. I think that's completely fine. I don't know if I want to.
I just realized I was doing stuff in the wrong tab, and as I was building my pool, it was happening on the tab I was screen sharing, and not the one that I was.
I was wondering what you were doing, but I wasn't gonna ask.
That was supposed to be me building my player pool.
I was just assuming that you knew what you were doing, but that was wrong on my part. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I don't really love the Portland guys because there's so many other good plays on the slate, and we haven't even talked about the Knicks yet. So I'm a little hesitant to play anyone from Portland, but I don't mind. I don't mind Denny.
Running 150 lineups, strictly 150 lineups on Portland type scenario. I don't think it's crazy to do two specific things in terms with the cheap options. One, you get Delano Banton in your pool, because if we happen to get Avdia and Henderson out, I think we could get 15 to 20 minutes for Banton, and he's such a good point per minute guy that he could smash at that price. That's why I bumped him up. And then the other one is Robert Williams. We're only projecting him for 1 minute, but there was a quote a while back that they were basically going to rotate Klingon and Robert Williams as the backup center. Robert Williams had 2 games ago. Klingon didn't play. Klingon got last game. Robert Williams didn't play. So I think this should theoretically be Robert Williams' day. If he gets 15 minutes off the bench, he could have 30 fantasy points at $4,100. So definitely not a safe play by any means. And when there's a high opportunity cost at center, so it's risky as hell. But if you're building a lot of lineups, I don't think it's crazy to throw that in 1 to 5 of them. Let's do a refresh here, see if we got the Minnesota projection update. Even if not, though, I think we can go into this because, like you said, Tim, Minnesota, we did have the if-then set for this earlier in the day. Don't have the update yet, but who do you like for the Minnesota side of things?
Go ahead, Taylor. Go ahead.
So Edwards missed last Saturday. Conley played, but McDaniels and Alexander Walker both top 40 minutes in that game. Daniel's not a huge guy about Randall and Edwards and Conley. Someone has to shoot. It's going to be Nas, I think, a lot, but McDaniel is going to have a big role. Alexander Walker, cheap, going to start, I assume. I think you can definitely play at least. I usually don't go up to 4, but I think 4 is viable in this scenario, given how thin they are. Alexander Walker, Dillingham, McDaniels, and Reed. And then I think you can still play Gobert. I guess Jalen Clark maybe as a punt. He did play well in the last game. He's kind of played his way into a little bit of a role, but that's kind of a large field thing. But I think Alexander Walker and Nas and Dillingham are going to be essentially core plays on the same team.
Tim, how about you? You're for sure playing Nas and Dillingham in cash, probably Nickeil Alexander-Walker as well. 3 Timberwolves, you think you go more?
Yeah, I think I'm going to be going at least 3 in cash. I'm going to see what projections do, but yeah, probably at least 3. I think they'd be a min 2 in a 150 build, probably max 4, but I would put this as a
walking Dillingham and Alexander Walker.
Yeah. What about Nas? That's who I'd be locked, but I mean, that's just.
I'm going to have like
personal preference.
Nas probably.
Yeah.
I had 90% Nas the other night, and that was the night that he left the game injured. And so that is the one thing holding me back from going absolutely all in on Nas.
Yeah, I would click that button again if it was my money, but it's not. So do what you want.
Tim, let's do this. I'm going to walk Nas, Alexander, and Walker and Dillingham in all 150 lineups.
I think that's fantastic. Yeah, so obviously Minnesota is going to be like, all over optimals now, which they should be. With no Edwards, a ton of usage is going to open up. But yeah, still could be some potential news though in that Knicks game with Cat as a mid-afternoon questionable. That makes me a little bit nervous. That could catapult Josh Hart to a really good fantasy play, and Jalen Brunson, I think, would end up being a really good fantasy play despite the terrible matchup. And we have cheap Celtics on the other side. So there's still some meaningful news. And we have Denver that has, I believe it's Jamal Murray and MPJ both questionable. So there's still news to be had here.
All right, well, let's go over to that next game. Boston and the Knicks. Like you said, we have Cat questionable. Taylor, we'll go to you here first for this one. The only guy projecting for double-digit ownership is Al Horford on DraftKings, who is just stupidly cheap. Probably won't even get up to that 20% we're projecting now, though, since we have all this Minnesota value. Who do you like in Boston and New York?
Yeah, he's still good because he's so cheap and they don't have Drew Holiday, but not a priority with the other Minnesota stuff we have now. Thankfully, I wasn't really dying to play Al Horford at high ownership anyway, but still okay. I do think the Boston side in general is interesting. New York's defense has been a little bit hit or miss. They don't have Anunoby. They might not have Towns. So they could be quite shorthanded. And I think Boston without Holiday, like you see usage bumps for Tatum and Brown and Porzingis and White. And then Pritchard plays a big role off the bench. So I think all those guys are viable. Certainly I would be a max one of Tatum and Brown. And then I think Pritchard as what looks like a fairly low owned value. His price is a bit up, but we've seen ceiling out of him in this situation all season long. So I don't mind it. In the mid fives, I think White is a sneaky tournament play. Porzingis is also a little priced up, but matchup would be good for him, especially if Towns is out. New York would be like running Precious out there for 40 minutes at center, I think. So advantageous spot. I think Boston, they're not going to pop a lot in an optimizer, but I do think being over the field on the main guys is pretty interesting.
Tim, how about you? I pretty much I'm on par. I agree with everything Taylor said. If we get Towns out, would you have any interest in, like, obviously bumps up Brunson, bumps up Hart, but would you have any ancillary interest in guys like who was like Precious?
I guess Precious would be interesting. I don't really like any of the guys necessarily off the bench because we already have amazing value. I don't think against Boston they're going to pop as hard as this Minnesota value. So we did just get a projections update, so you can go back and look at that if you want to. I didn't really want to play Horford either. I'm glad that he's going to not be a thing anymore.
Jalen Clark's projection just really took me off guard.
Well, it's because we haven't projected to start.
Yeah.
So I think we're giving him
we have Clark 32 minutes off the bench right now.
No. Clark's starting.
Our projections have Dillingham, Alexander Walker, McDaniels, Reed, Gobert.
Oh, they must have. Okay.
With Dillingham at 28 minutes and Clark 32 off the bench.
Okay. All right.
Champagny is both playing and starting for the Wizards.
All right. Yeah, so Dillingham is going to just be off the charts.
Yeah, Dillingham here. I'll scroll over to that on so we can just look at that right now. Anyways, absolutely off the charts for Dillingham. Absolutely off the charts for Clark. While Alexander Walker looking really good too. This team is like, what in GPPs? What's the max amount of Timberwolves you're comfortable playing in a lineup?
Four. Yeah,
that's what I have.
Honestly, this would be like a min 2 max, or maybe even a min 3. I don't know, min 2 max 4 in a 150 set for me. That's what I would do. I do want to say one thing real quick because I see them talking about this in Slack. If Jalen Clark starts, Dillingham is still a fantastic play. So don't be don't jump off of Dillingham if Clark starts because it's not going to
Hope
affect
everybody else does.
Yeah, exactly. But don't make that mistake because Dillingham's still going to be a fantastic play. So this is only a projection that we're projecting Dillingham to start. It could very well be Clark, but that's not going to mean that I'm not going to be playing Dillingham.
All right, we got the last game on the DraftKings slate, Denver and Phoenix. Taylor, we'll go to you here first. Another big total, another close spread. We have no idea what the hell to do with this game yet. Kevin Durant, Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., Bradley Beal, all listed as questionable. Grayson Allen listed as questionable.
Yep.
Do your best. What's going on?
With all the value, it's pretty easy to get to Jokic now. And Jokic, as it is a great play against Nick Richards and Mason Plumlee. And if Murray's out or Michael Porter's out or both out, he's going to look all that much better. So just building with him in right now is something I want to do, and I'll just stick with it. I think it's always a fun thing to do. Depending on the news, Strother is probably going to start for one of the guys if they sit. Not sure what they would do if both sit, but Aaron Gordon's still cheap enough to play. He's kind of come around a little bit lately. Murray, if he's in, I guess is okay. Not going to be owned at all because of the news and all this early value we have. So he's shown ceiling. Ditto for Michael Porter. Like these guys have been. Michael Porter's been on a huge streak. Jamal Murray's been pretty boomer bust. Both are good tournament plays if they're in. Strother, a secondary, like the Minnesota value is a lot better than Strother would be if Strother gets unlocked as a value, but still viable. As for Phoenix, KD and Beal missed last night. Devin Booker went off. Grayson Allen went off. Royce O'Neal would be an okay value, but again, you can't really build for this stuff and pass up the early value. So it's probably more of a late slate or a FanDuel thing. Like I said, the FanDuel slate has those late West Coast games, so you can kind of build that in more easily and have stuff to pivot to. So as of now, my plan is just to kind of put Jokic in and feel good about that. Otherwise, like KD and Booker are just like large field tournament plays at this point.
Tim, we got Portland guys are in. Avdia's in, and so is Scoot Henderson. So that's a team I'm pretty comfortable now, just completely scratching off of my list. Denver, Phoenix, how you handling this one? You only play one lineup, so is it going to have Jokic? Are you thinking you're going to try and include Devin Booker?
Yeah, it actually wasn't going to have Jokic, but now it definitely is going to have Jokic. It's just too easy to play him now. So yeah, I'm with Taylor. I'm locking him in. The rest of this game, though, on both sides, you could be a little bit contrarian and maybe fade a couple of these Minnesota pieces, maybe fade a couple of those Washington pieces, and hold out on getting a lot of these Suns guys sitting to get value, or a lot of these Nuggets guys sitting to get value. But like Taylor pointed out, like if Strother gets opened up, he's not going to compare to any of this Minnesota value at all. So not even close, really. So, I'm probably just going to lock in Jokic and then maybe make one other play from this game. Like maybe put in Michael Porter Jr., then maybe if he's out, go to like a Bradley Beal or some kind of 1v1 out of this game. I think that's probably what I'm going to be doing.
All right, I like it. Let's pivot over to the last two games on FanDuel. Then we will go position by position, outlining the cash plays, and then just a couple of our favorites in large field tournaments as well. Smash the like button if you're watching us on YouTube. We'll go to you for questions, as well as the RotoGrinders live stream Discord chat. New Orleans at Sacramento, 7.5 point spread, but another huge total here, 123, above 123, actually the highest on the slate for the Sacramento Kings. Taylor, are you playing any lineups on FanDuel tonight? We got Zach LaVine projecting for a ton of ownership. How do you feel about this game?
I would be playing if I weren't on the show, but it's kind of hard to juggle everything, so I'm just playing DK tonight. But if I were playing FanDuel, I would have a lot of interest in Sacramento in particular. I think the spot is super good for Sabonis. It's kind of a cheaper pivot from Jokic. New Orleans doesn't really protect the paint with Yves Missi in there. It's a pretty exploitable matchup, so I like him quite a bit. Monk, Levine, DeRozan are all kind of okay. I'm not super into Levine at significant ownership in his third game with the team. Like, I think there are ways to get away from that. I would have more interest in Monk in that range. I think he's got a pretty stable role as the point guard there without Fox, so like that quite a bit. DeRozan has a pure pivot from Levine. They're like the same price. Looks like DeRozan is a little bit lower owned.
I'm going to
Capella
cut you
out.
off quick because we have Niang starting for Atlanta. He's going to be starting over. Oh, no, we did have him projected.
We had him projected.
Had Capella get ruled out. So all of a sudden making a Kongwu look a lot nicer. Larry Nance, who has power forward eligibility, potentially looking somewhat viable here. Capella just got ruled out for them. And then I thought there was one more thing I wanted to bring up, but Lou Dort got ruled out. So we talked about really liking these OKC pieces. One that actually is going to make their defense significantly worse because he's arguably the best perimeter defender in the NBA. But also guys like Aaron Wiggins, Isaiah Joe, Alex Caruso, I think become a little viable.
Yeah, I think Wiggins is pretty
for
interesting.
Sure.
We saw that ceiling last weekend, so probably not expecting that, but
that game was insane.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Sorry
to cut you off, but New Orleans, Sacramento.
Yeah, so kind of ran down Sacramento. I think Zion is still playable. Like even on his minutes limit, he's been smashing, just insane per minute rates. They don't have Ingram anymore. They don't have Herb, DeJounte out for the season. So I like him a good bit at 9K. Yves Missi, okay, sub 5K center, but I do prefer Rashawn Holmes at a similar price in the Washington game. But beyond, and Jose Alvarado, I think is okay as a salary saver. Not really going to get owned, especially with Dillingham and stuff popping now. But I'm okay with Alvarado as a tournament flyer into large field stuff.
I ended up not locking any of the Minnesota players, but I'm going to play 4 Minnesota players in every single tournament lineup. So no locks, but I'm going to have variations of Dillingham, Alexander Walker, Reed, McDaniels, Clark, Gobert. 4 of them in every single lineup I play on DK. Tim, New Orleans, Sacramento. Who do you like on FanDuel?
Yeah, so Sacramento is a fantastic spot on the FanDuel slate. I do kind of agree with Taylor, though. I probably prefer Monk over Levine in this game. But if you wanted to play Levine, it's completely fine. I think even DeRozan is okay. I think Sabonis is okay, especially since he has that power forward eligibility. So this is a really, really strong team to target. Love streaming against the Pelicans. The other side of this game, not as interested in. I think Trey Murphy has been playing just absolutely outstanding, and I think he's maybe worth a shot in large field GPPs. But really, I think that's it for me from the Pelican side.
All right, Utah at the Clippers. We don't want to have to care about this game, and maybe with all the Minnesota value that opened up, we don't near as much. But we still have Markkanen out, Collins out, Sexton out. Who the heck is left other than Jordan Clarkson and Collier and Keontae George for the Utah Jazz going up against a Clipper team who, again, another total over 120.
Yeah, Utah was going to be super, super chalky if we didn't get all that Minnesota stuff. So, I mean, there's still some, I think, decent plays from the Utah side just because they're a little bit, short on players because they're tanking. Isaiah Collier was going to be somewhat popular. I think he's a little bit too expensive, and we have better value at guard. Jordan Clarkson, because he has small forward eligibility at 5'9", I think he's okay. The one player that I really do want to mention, though, from this game is Kawhi at 7,200. I think he's a pretty solid play still, even with all this value. So, yeah, I mean, I think Kawhi is a pretty decent play tonight.
Taylor, Utah, Clippers. What are you doing here? Last one, and then we go position by position.
Yeah, I agree about Kawhi. I think Norm Powell as a pure pivot, I think at the same price is pretty interesting. He's shown ceiling even with Kawhi in, but Kawhi got 33 minutes in the last game, the most he's played all year, so that they're kind of unleashing him a little bit. The matchup is awesome. No issue with it. Harden is okay at 9'4", not a priority. Clarkson at 5'9", with all the fake injuries and tanking stuff they're doing, is pretty good. He's going to have a ton of usage with that backcourt super thin. So at sub 6K, I think Clarkson has some value. Filipowski, maybe that's okay. 4K center and power forward on FanDuel is fine, but kind of falls by the wayside with the Minnesota stuff. More of a late slate FanDuel large field type thing.
Great point by Freddie Reyes in the YouTube chat. Projection just got another update, and Jalen Clark's minutes all the way down to 26 from 32. Dillingham's up to 32. So he's popping even more egregiously than he was before, and Jalen Clark quite a bit lower. Let's start going position by position here. We'll utilize SimLabs, talk FanDuel, and DraftKings together. Tim and Taylor, both of you are very strong cash game players, so both of you feel free to hammer home who you think the cash game plays are, and then just a few of your favorite, like very top tournament pivots. Maybe, I guess, Tim, you can handle that for single entry, Taylor for larger field, multiple lineup stuff.
Yeah, I mean, point guard is really easy. You're going to be playing Rob Dillingham in cash games and single entry. He's almost a 10x value, a 13.19 RG value. So, I mean, he's a really, really strong play across the board, both sites. I still think that Steph Curry is firmly in play. I still like SGA for GPPs, and I think I'd run it out with Jordan Poole. But I mean, I would honestly be all in on Dillingham.
My most recent build has 100% Dillingham, 83% Nas, 83% Alexander Walker, 75% Jalen Clark, 75% Jokic. I like it. This is a lot of fun. This is going to be a fun day. Taylor, who do you like at point guard?
Yeah, mostly the same guys. I think Trey in tournaments is going to be good. Jordan Poole, like we talked about, really strong play on both sites, any format. I like Brunson quite a bit. With OG out, he gets a boost. With Cat out, he would get another boost, and I don't think he's really going to get a whole lot of steam. Still waiting on that Cat news, but I love that as a GPP play at 8.6 on DK. I think that's pretty strong. And then Booker, like we saw, it could be a situation where they don't have Beal or KD again, or Grayson Allen potentially. So even after playing OT last night in a tough spot against Denver, I think Booker should be someone in your pool for tournaments for sure.
All right, Taylor, taking the shooting guard.
Yeah, so Alexander Walker is going to be the chalk here with good reason. Guard forward eligible. Jalen Clark, super cheap, guard forward eligible as well. Like that a lot. Koulibaly, like we talked about, is awesome in that first game for the Wizards with all the injuries they have. Kobe White, shooting guard, small forward on DK. I think that's pretty interesting on the other side of the Golden State game. I mentioned Booker. I mentioned Dyson Daniels earlier. I think he's a very strong play that people are probably not going to be super into in the first game of the night again. And I think Carrington is probably someone I would probably fully fade at this point. I think his ownership's going to be too high, and I'm not really in love with the play to begin with.
Agreed with that one, 100%. Tim, how about you? Who do you like at shooting guard?
Yeah, so there's obviously Neil Alexander Walker, but we still have Koulibaly, who's shooting guard only on DraftKings, where you can play Na at small forward. So I'd still probably play Koulibaly at shooting guard, or play Jalen Clark at shooting guard and play Na at shooting guard small forward. So I think those three guys, definitely Na is cash games, and then you could go either Clark or Koulibaly in cash games, depending on what you want to do with the rest of your team. Dyson Daniels, I still think is a fantastic GPP play. Trying to see what else over here on FanDuel real quick, if there's any other differences. Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple questions about Devin Booker. I think he's fine. And Zach LaVine is obviously fine as well. But those those cheap Minnesota guys are definitely going to be your more optimal plays.
Wes, try to get my lineups in, but this last one gave me 0 Ja Morant or Jimmy Butler, and I would like them in just a couple lineups, just in case. Taylor or Tim, take me to small forward.
Yeah, so definitely
A lot of the same things.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, Jaden McDaniels, I think is a strong play. I think he's okay, but I mean, same thing. Jalen Clark, Yang is popping a little bit more than he was earlier, but I don't think he's the value that this Minnesota team is. So I really don't like him that much in this spot when compared to some of the other value pieces. I do like. I already mentioned Franz Wagner at 8,300. I think he's fine for GPPs if you want to spend up at the spot. I wish I knew if MPJ was playing or not, but I suppose if he isn't, you could pivot down to Christian Brown because I do like one of those wings in this game. I do wish that MPJ was playing.
Taylor, how about you? Who do you like small forward?
I think McDaniels is pretty strong. I don't know if people are going to want to play him at his elevated price point, but we saw last week he's going to get usage without Edwards in there and without Randall. So I think it's a good play. Like Tatum quite a bit. Jaylen Brown, like we talked about, the Celtics are not going to be as owned as they possibly should be, and kind of one of the more entertaining games of the night. I think that's a good play. Jalen Williams, Aaron Wiggins now without Lou Dort and without Cason Wallace, and Chet's going to play pretty significant minutes, I would think. So he's a bit pricey too, relative to where he normally is, but I still think he's a good play. And then Franz Wagner is still on my radar in tournaments against the Spurs defense. It's kind of fallen off lately.
All right, take me to power forward.
So Naz Reid, core play, no doubt. Justin Champagnie starting. The Wizards have been kind of ravaged by injuries and trades, so he's going to get quite a few minutes. Good per minute guy too. I like that as a salary saver. Tatum, we talked about. Horford on DK at 3.6, still viable, not a core play at all, but still fine. Draymond, Aaron Gordon, Buzelis, Banchero, like Tim said, Io's power forward on DK. So it's kind of a rich position, but I think Naz and Champagnie are probably the headliners right now.
Tim, how about you? Who do you like power forward?
Yeah, I mean,
Naz is the good chalk. Champagnie's the not so good chalk.
I kind of disagree. I mean, I think they're both good, actually.
I just think there's a lot of really good pivots in the range of Champagnie.
Sure. I mean, it is a strong position for sure. I do agree with that. Yeah. So Nas 100% has to be in your cash games. Champagnie is fine as well. But yeah, I mean, Io I like quite a bit. Banchero we talked about. I do like him quite a bit in GPPs. We have him for 24% on DraftKings. I don't think many people are going to play Aaron Gordon just because he hasn't been, looking so great, but it could be an interesting buy low spot for him.
He's kind of bounced back recently where last 2 games he's kind of looked back into form.
Right. Yeah. And I just don't think he's going to get as much ownership as we currently have him projected for. So I think he's an interesting GPP play over on FanDuel. I mean, we do get guys like Sabonis and Zion that we could spend up for. If you really want to spend up at the position, I would prefer getting to Sabonis, but Naz Reid is definitely going to be like your core guy. But I mean, Kawhi, he's only $100 less than Naz. I mean, he could easily outscore Naz Reid. So I think Kawhi at 72 is a really, really strong play tonight. Filipowski at 4K if you need somebody really, really cheap. He fills the power forward center spot. I think he's okay. Yeah, and I think that's pretty much it for me.
All right, take me to center. Yeah,
so center, I mean, at least on DK, I'm locking in Jokic. I think he's just so easy to play. Rashawn Holmes, I think he's okay as a cheaper option. We did talk about how we lost Capella, so Okongwu, I think is a strong GPP play as well. I think Taylor mentioned Hartenstein earlier today at 7K. Really good pace-up matchup for that Thunder. Should play right around 30 minutes. So I think Hartenstein in large field GPPs is a really strong play as well.
Taylor, how about you? Who do you like at center?
Nobody really different to add. Love the Okongwu thing. I think the Capella absence is pretty huge for him, so I feel a lot more comfortable with it now, especially against the Wizards. Towns, if he's in, I think is interesting. Not going to get any ownership either, but the midday downgrade to questionable is a little bit scary.
We got officially a game time decision.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that. I think Precious is going to be a really strong play. He's a pretty decent play anyway, starting in place of OG, but if Towns is out, he might play 43 minutes. He's kind of expensive, but there's some upside there given the minutes potential. So I would have my eye on him a little bit. And then Gobert, I think, is fine at 6'8". He's one of the Wolves like McDaniels who might kind of fly under the radar, but still totally playable.
Gentlemen, I got to say, I think we've timed this pretty darn perfectly. We got 8 minutes left to lock. Perfect amount of time to take some QQs. Go to the RotoGrinders live stream Discord first, then to YouTube, Yahoo Cash, Koulibaly and Matkovic, or Buzelis and Draymond. Taylor, we'll go to you for that.
I know Matkovic has been starting. I just don't know if I want to do that. So I would probably go with the Draymond side.
Do we think that, apologies, I don't know how to say this guy's last name, Gui, it will get some minutes without Clint Capella playing? I genuinely have no idea who that is.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I don't think you should play him. I think the slate's way too big.
Yeah, we get too much value for that anyways. DK, GPP, Tim, Daniels, Giddey, or Poole?
What was that again?
Dyson Daniels, Josh Giddey, or Jordan Poole. So get Giddey out of there. Jordan Poole or Dyson Daniels?
Yeah, probably Poole.
DK, GPP, Taylor, Payne Pritchard, or Ayo Dosunmu?
Pritchard for me.
DK Cash, Tim, Koulibaly and McDaniels, or Clark and Brunson?
Yeah, so it's I like that Clark, Brunson, and if Cat plays, play Curry.
Great call. Yeah, go with Brunson, but then if Cat's in, you make the swap to Curry. I think that's a really good idea. FanDuel tournament today, or Nats or Niang?
That's very tough. I guess I would go with Niang starting, but first game with the team, there's a lot of uncertainty there.
Mr. Richard noting that Dillingham is currently projected for 68% ownership. He should be 100.
Yeah,
so that's
okay. Totally I think it's just chalk that you eat.
Yeah. DK single entry, Okongwu and Dyson, or Holmes and Brunson, Tim?
Probably go the Okongwu, Dyson.
Koulibaly and McDaniels, or Brunson or Steph and Clark becoming cat news. Yeah, so we talked about that's the Clark and Steph or Brunson side. Straight up, Naz Reid or Onyeka Okongwu, Taylor?
Straight up, probably Reid, but going to be a lot more owned. So depends on the rest of your lineup.
DK single entry, Koulibaly or Christian Brown, Tim?
I think it's still Koulibaly.
What do you think about Rashawn Holmes today? Taylor, if somebody's playing one lineup, should they play Holmes or wait for some other news?
I'd probably wait. I think there's a lot of payout potential in waiting for that Denver Phoenix news in particular and New York. So I probably wouldn't play Holmes if I was just playing one.
Tim, FanDuel Cash, what do you think about going Jokic?
So I'm actually building my FanDuel team right this second. I mean, it's really easy to do. So I really don't mind it. There are other builds that you can do without him that I like. I'm leaning yes to that right now.
Derek Ringering asking, is Clark only a play if he starts? No, Clark is a play regardless. We're expecting him to come off the bench, and he is still one of the top value plays on the slate. Tim, DK single entry. Are there any must plays in those first two games, or can you fade it and wait for the 8 o'clock and later?
I think you can fade it, but I would say that I'm pretty close to saying that I really do like Koulibaly. So he's pretty darn close to a must play for me in that first game.
Taylor, what do you think about Nick Vucevic tonight? Is the original Vooch? Is he going off?
I remember being pretty over the field on him the last time he faced Golden State, and it did not go well. But yeah, I don't mind that. No one's going to play him at all, so I think that's pretty sharp.
All right, that is it for questions right now.
Taylor, do you think there's any must plays? Are you locking anyone in from that Washington Atlanta game?
No, I probably
You're not?
wouldn't. I think I do
Okay.
love the Koulibaly thing, and Poole and Champagny are all great.
Yep.
I just wouldn't say they're musts.
Okay.
Honestly, I would be playing multiple in that Washington Atlanta game or none at all. That's kind of how I think I'd be going. I don't think I would go like one of Koulibaly or something like that. I'd be more inclined to do Dyson Daniels, Okongwu, Koulibaly, and Jordan Poole, and just hope that this game is fast-paced, close all the way to the end. FanDuel tournament, Dillingham and Banchero, or Jose Alvarado and Zion. It's definitely Dillingham and Banchero because you need to play Dillingham. FanDuel tournament, Messi or Holmes, Taylor?
Probably Holmes.
Tim, you okay with trusting Jalen Clark in FanDuel cash and single entry?
I am.
FanDuel single entry, Taylor, SGA and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, the Cousins, or Curry and Poole?
Let's go with Cousins. I like that.
Kispert or Champagny, small forward, FanDuel cash, Tim?
Kispert or Champagny in what?
FanDuel cash.
I would go Champagny.
That'll do it for all the questions. If you got any else before lock, get them in. We still got 2 minutes left. Tim, who's breaking the slate?
I'm gonna go with. This is tough. I'm gonna go Chalky. I'm gonna go Nas, and then somebody off the board. I'm going to go with Okongwu.
Taylor, how about you? Who's breaking the slate?
Let's see. Is it lame to say Jokic? Because that's probably the right answer.
That can be your chalky one. We'll each take one that's like a chalk, and then each take one that's an off the board.
Okay, I'll go Jokic, and then I'll go Brunson. I like that quite a bit.
I'm gonna go Jaden McDaniels and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander breaking the slate today. Tim, who's winning the Super Bowl tomorrow?
I'm gonna go with Kansas City.
You gonna play any single entry Super Bowl stuff?
Oh, 100%.
You just going with one lineup, or are you making a few for this one?
Just one lineup.
Who are you leaning towards for your captain?
I have done absolutely zero research, so that's what I'll be doing tonight and tomorrow morning.
Even if you haven't done any research yet, we won't have a show tomorrow, but on Friday, Davis, Chop, and Beer went live, and they broke the whole slate down. They did a really great job. I built my lineups while I was watching that show today, so go and check that out. They did an awesome job. They gave you some props, some pick and plays, how to build your lineups on FanDuel and DraftKings, how to get different, what's going to be chalky, what's not. Make sure you check us out. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. Why am I signing out when it hasn't actually hit lock yet? We got to stay until it actually hits lock. We got about 45 seconds left. So, Taylor, I didn't ask you. Who's winning the Super Bowl?
I'm going with the Eagles. I feel like they're the better team, and the Chiefs' madness has to come to an end. So let's hope it does.
I'm going with the Eagles as well, just because they were my preseason pick, my pre-postseason pick to win the Super Bowl. And so I'm rolling with them in this one as well. Building a ton of Jalen Hurts captain lineups in my 20 entries that I'm putting out for the Super Bowl tomorrow. I think he is my favorite of the three, Mahomes, Barkley, and Hurts, the spend ups. Are you going to be playing any single game stuff for the Super Bowl, Taylor?
I probably will. I always kind of don't want to do it, and then the day comes and I talk myself into it. So I will. I haven't done research either, but still got a whole day tomorrow.
One thing in terms of a prop play that I absolutely love for tomorrow is Patrick Mahomes more than or over, depending on where you're looking, 5.5 rushing attempts. I think that is, I was smashing it last week at 4.5. This week again, I just think it's an absolutely phenomenal bet at 5.5. The books are not adjusting for the fact that he runs way more in the playoffs. And so Mahomes more than 5.5 rushing attempts, by far my favorite prop bet on the slate for tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. Good luck on your NBA contest tonight. We're still waiting on that Denver news, so make sure you stay glued to your phones if you're building lineups tonight. Thanks so much for tuning in. Smash the like button on your way out. On behalf of myself, Tim, Taylor, good luck. Enjoy the Super Bowl tomorrow. We'll see you next time.